immediately forgot. Thanks, Esra. I'm Kerry Barnes. I'm the series creative producer for Kiya. And I am responsible for delivering the show eventually, and for a lot of for coordinating all the creative and bringing her to the screen in the end. Kiya, should I tell you who Kiya is? Is that what we do?
Not yet. Hold that thought.
Okay.
Hold that thought. And for people who are listening,
that's who I am. I coordinate
we shouldn't
everybody.
get to that.
Yeah. So I'm the little linchpin of everybody's different ideas.
So Kerry's the mastermind of the show, guys. So for anyone who's heard of the term showrunner, it's really Kerry who is, heading up all creative decision making on the show, the world we're creating, the stories that we're telling. So you're being very modest, which is part of what makes you, which I love. Seppo, over to you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Tshepo Moche. I'm based in South Africa, and I worked on representing Triggerfish. I worked on Kiya as an executive creative consultant as well as a writer. Really, really excited to be in the room, and thank you guys for joining us.
Kiara.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Kiya Holroyd, and I'm the Vice President of Multicultural Marketing at RNC PMK. Let's see, I help brands like Hasbro define their messaging for shows like Kiya, and that's to authentically connect with an increasingly diverse consumer and really to ensure that our campaigns are accurate, they're engaging, and they're sensitive. So I'm so pleased to be here.
Thank you for being here. So before we get into the discussion, guys, I'm going to do a whistle-stop tour, if we can move to the next slide, of I guess the end-to-end process of creating a show like Kiya and then hopefully bringing it to all of those other touch points. So we start with development of the TV show, and the key kind of brainchilds that have been driving the creation of Kiya have obviously been Triggerfish, who originated the concept, and we'll hear more about how that happened from Seppo down the line. Our co-production partners, Disney, who are now making the show available across multiple markets around the world, and E1 Hasbro, who are a co-producer as well, and ultimately would become the commercial arm for for Kiya the brand. And we're working with writers, director, producers, animators, musicians, a whole bunch of amazing creative talent across the whole world, actually, to create the world and the characters and the stories that we ultimately then produce, which leads us into actual production. And so people then start animating, we're creating a model of Kiya and all of the other characters. We're building trees, we're building everything that you will see in the world. And again, our co-production unit works in very close partnership to do that. And we've been working together for about 3 years, guys. And then we, thank you, Lucy. Thank you very much. We're in go-to-market planning. And so how are we going to launch? How are we going to coordinate everything? How are we going to create the biggest bang and talk about Kiya in a way that's really going to connect with the right audiences and help the right audience find our wonderful show? And this is where we bring in brilliant minds like Kiara's from RNC PMK to make sure that we're doing that in the best way possible. And we're now live. You can watch Kiya on your Disney Plus service or your Disney Junior service. The launch started in the US in March and is rolling out in multiple territories as we go. And by the end of this year, Kiya will be available in over 150 markets, including Africa and South Africa, which of course is the big inspiration for the world that we've created. And so that's thrilling. And then, as I say, hopefully we will be able to bring Kiya into a number of different iterations that can ultimately live on retail. And this is where really Hasbro's commercial expertise would come in. That's very whistle stop. And as you can see, there are many people and many roles involved in that process. It really does take an army. And so thanks to these amazing women who are amazing, and as I say, some of the best in the business, but we are four of hundreds and hundreds of people who have helped to bring Kiya to life. And so massive shout out to all of them as well. Before we jump into the discussion, we're actually going to show you a little bit of Kiya. So if we can run the trailer, and then we'll stop sharing and come back to you.
Time to shine bright and make things right. I am Kiya, Dance Ninja. Grunge-a-tay, Kimoja Heroes to the rescue. Yeah! Hero whip, ow! Moxie, Jay, follow my rhythm. I am Moxie, tech research. I am Jig, flying rockstar. We are the Kimoja Heroes. We help our friends, we help our neighbors. We are one, Kimoja, we are one. There's no way you can stop Prima Donna. It's Hattie Collider and Galactoslug. Time for some acrobat fun. We are one, yes we are strong. We're here to help. Kiya and the Kimoja Heroes.
Yes, always dance when that song comes on. Thank you, Lucy, for doing that for us. So, Kerry, I'm going to open the discussion with you. Tell us about Kiya. Tell us about the show. And you are back on mute.
God.
Of course you are.
Of course. So Kiya is a 7-year-old African little girl. She lives in Kimoja, a fictional, fantastical, but of Southern African city, with her dad, Daddy Joe, and her maternal granny, Gogo Flo. And they all live together. And Daddy Joe is a dance teacher, and Gogo Flo is a martial arts master. And Kiya loves both of those things. She loves to dance, she loves to do martial arts. She loves to have fun with her friends. She believes in the best in everybody. She's an empath. She cares about people's happiness, and she cares about her community more than anything. The happiness of the community, the connectivity and serenity of the community is really important to her, because she believes that that's where everyone can thrive if everything is doing well. She is also, because she lives in this fantastical place, the owner of a Kimojan crystal, and so are her two best friends, and they believe it's their absolute job in life to shine bright and make things right. So they use their crystals to transform, like every good superhero, and off they go. Whenever the drums sound to tell them there's something wrong, off they go to make things right. And order is always restored, of course. Kiya always believes in the best in people, and works very hard, dances very hard, kicks ass very hard to make sure everything is good again for everybody. I mean, to the extent that really, if she finds out that somebody is feeling sad, she will move mountains to make them happy. And she doesn't want anyone, to feel bad at all. She's a very joyful little girl who, as I said, wants to inspire kids to be whatever they want to be, and not to have to choose, not to put themselves in a box. She doesn't sit in a box of any kind. So yeah, she's our leader, she leads the show, and obviously there's much more I can say, but that's Kiya. Yeah.
She's all kinds of awesome. And yes, you talked about that superhero transformation.
Yes.
But of course it's slightly different in our world, because the whole community knows that they are also superheroes, these three little kids, which is different, right? It's different from the superhero tropes that we used to. Maybe talk a little bit more about.
Yeah, they don't have a secret identity. I mean, there is one character that has a secret identity, actually. Acrobat is actually a kid who lives amongst them, and has a kind of little Jekyll and Hyde character. So there is one that just has a secret identity. But yes, they all know that they can call on Kiya and her friends to sort anything out. Yeah, no, and they all understand that Kimoja has this these kind of this crystal energy, this of community energy through it that that informs everything that Kiya and her friends do. So yeah, it is not like any other superhero show, but it is also like other superhero shows in a way that, you know, Kiya gets to transform, she gets to dance and jump incredible heights, she gets to, you know, do amazing things midair, and you know, she's as badass as any superhero, so she's cool.
Beautiful. Seppo, can you talk to us about how Kiya came to be and that origin story?
Yay, we love a good origin story. And this has been a very long but beautiful journey, I think, for all of us, which started in the Triggerfish Story Lab in 2015. So the original idea came from Mark Day, who also ended up being a writer on the show as well, and Kelly Dillon. So Mark had this idea for Ninja Princess, and it was inspired by one of his beautiful daughters, Lily, who enjoyed dressing up as a princess in her tutu whilst riding dinosaurs. And Mark really found that very interesting, and he really wanted to explore that idea around duality. And as well as like encourage his daughter and other kids to, as Ezra said, be more than one thing. And the idea that you can celebrate more than that, you can be more than one thing, as well as wanting to kind of push the idea of community from a Southern African space and have people kind of celebrate and understand community from our perspective in a way. So Mark took the concept to Kelly, who was working at Triggerfish at the time as well. They workshopped it a little bit more, pitched it at the Story Lab, and they got the shortlist out of about 1,500 applicants and projects. So, you know, it really shined bright in terms of a Kiya episode. And yeah, and then they pitched it towards Disney, and E1 and Hasbro came on board, and E1 also brought in the seasoned and wonderful Robert Vargas on the team, who developed the show even further and kind of crafted it into Kiya Dance Ninja, not Ninja Princess anymore. So she became the Dance Ninja and molded it into a superhero kind of concept. And what was also really great was they did bring Robert over to Cape Town to meet Kelly and Mark, and also just engage in the environment and space in Cape Town, which became a really big inspiration for a lot of the world and some of the characters. So that was really nice to have that kind of authentic cross-culture engagement between the original concept creators and what Robert brought to the show. And that's kind of the base origins of Kiya. And now you're seeing us now having this webinar with you over these years. I joined the project about 4 years ago, I think. It's been a while. Time is relative. It's been fun. And yeah, I was just saying to the rest of the team now, this past Sunday, I was just at the launch in South Africa, in Johannesburg, and I had the pleasure of meeting the voice talent. I met the Kiya voice talent, Prima Donna, Daddy Joe, and Go-Go Flow. And that was also a really, really amazing emotional time, I think, on my side as well, from an authentic space of storytelling, because that was definitely a decision made holistically as a team to have local talent voice the characters and to discover, especially the younger kids' characters who have never done this before in their lives. So for them to be exposed to such a platform and space and world and characters, the kids especially, but all the voice talent have been so excited about the project, and seeing it on screen locally was really, really beautiful to see a bunch of kids at the launch just engaging in the characters and the world and understanding it. And we danced a lot on that day. We really, really danced a lot. So it was a really beautiful time. Yeah. And that's the story.
I'm so happy to hear there was dancing.
Yes.
Silent disco and everything. Art station, disco, drumming. I took a lot of stuff home with me. It's great. It was great.
That's so awesome. And you mentioned us, and so the E1 crew were pitched this project at one of the markets, and guys, so there are these trade fairs that happen all around the world with amazing creators, big and small, who then meet people like my boss and share concepts and ideas. And from an E1 perspective, we're the guys behind Peppa Pig, for any of you who know what that means, and also very successful shows for little kids like PJ Masks. And my boss essentially is always looking for something that isn't already out there. And so we saw Kiya, this young African, you know, superhero with heart girl, and he was incredibly inspired and didn't feel like there was enough of that in the world, and so was you know, inspired to essentially option E1 Kiya as an E1 show for development. And it was in development for a long time. You know, I mean, obviously, Seppo, you've said 2015, so it's nearly 7.5 years before it actually made it to the TV screens. But where I think it started getting properly into development and what we call green light, which is we are now fully funding the production of this show, was about 3 years ago. And through that process, working with these incredible women, we're then, you know, kind of shaping something that we think is going to obviously connect with lots of audiences in the world, both girls and boys, but very specifically focused on creating a female lead Black character who can shine a light for girl fabulousness to you know, this generation of girls. And I live in hope that we will have a generation of girls called Kiya, because Kiya is pretty special, and yeah, and hopefully you guys are experiencing that. And thank you, because I can see the chat coming in, and you know, nieces watching and seeing a character on screen that looks like them, that's like the win, that's the goosebumps win. So I'm happy and can die happy knowing that. And so yeah, thank you for sharing, and keep those chats coming through. Kerry, I'm gonna turn to you, and you know, Seppo's already talked about the local voice talent that we've had in the show.
Yes.
And you bring such a wealth of experience, and I know you've worked with particularly our Kiya voice and our prima donna voice, you know, to develop their acting talent and their amazing, phenomenal talent. And so that, but also just some of those you know, considerations we've come across over the years of ensuring that we are doing justice to this community that we're bringing to life in a celebratory and respectful and loving way.
Yes, God, so much to say. I mean, it is so difficult to choose. I do love, Seppo's absolutely right. You know, even when you listen to Kiya announce the beginning of that trailer, you can hear that she's a little South African girl. You know, you can hear she's got that lovely accent. I love that every time I hear them. I'm so proud of them. They're wonderful. I mean, everything, I guess, you know, Kiya herself, obviously, we wanted her to feel like a little modern girl, and super, super cool when she transformed. So she has her, during the transformation, her little hair puffs, which are just, you know, cute little hair puffs to start with. They kind of transform into these beautiful braids that have got kind of color thread through them and sparkle, and they're, you know, just really,
the hair powers up.
It literally powers up. And yes. I remember showing that to Kiya, to Daneo actually herself, and she was just like, oh my goodness. And then a couple of sessions later came with her hair in just full braids, just beautiful long braids, and she just looked, I was like, looking pretty amazing there. She's like, yeah, I know. So I really love it. So that stuff, but there was a lot of, you know, back and forth, you know, what, you know, reference from the Triggerfish guys. Oh, can we try this? Can we try? I mean, we didn't sort of, it took a long time. It took months and months and months of really working with the sort of CG artists to try and really get that right. Actually, on all of them, the CG models, it was, you know, we went back into all of them constantly to really go, oh, are we happy? You know, are they looking modern enough? They look cool. You know, have we missed a detail? And everybody had rounds and rounds and rounds of notes that were, you know, addressed. Obviously, there was a huge amount of tender, loving care, you know, lavished on the characters before we went even into animation, obviously. So yeah, there's so many layers to it that, I mean, I've made a lot of shows in CG and stop frame and 2D and all the rest of it, but I've never quite worked. I've often made a lot of assumptions, and that we didn't do that on this show. We always asked everybody, you know, what do you think? Does this feel right to you? Is this authentic? How can we do better? you know, and that I think it's lovely to see the trailer again, because actually I think that's really something that is sort of punching through. So,
yeah, you should be.
We
should all be very proud. I remember, you know, I've learned so much from you, Seppo, through the process. And a comment that you made, because, you know, for everyone listening, this is genuinely a global production. You know, we have animators in Paris, we have folks in the US, obviously those of us in London, and of course, you know, the amazing Triggerfish team in South Africa, our character designer from Senegal, our, you know, just from all over the place. And when you have lots and lots of people working together like that, that we only know what we know, right? Which is one of the reasons why we're doing panels like this, is we need difference in our industry. We need diversity in our industry, and those diverse experiences. And I remember a statement that's never left me, Seppo, where you were very politely but also firmly commenting on some Google image research that had been done. And you said, predominantly created by white men, right? What, you know, Google, like, and that kind of learning is really what created the culture that Kerry is describing around not making assumptions, pulling in people who can authentically speak to, you know, this community and actually guide us. And we did make some very expensive pivots, and quite right too, because of, you know, some of the things that we learned along the way. And so thank you. Do you want to add to that, Seppo? Because obviously you come at it from a, you know, from a really important perspective.
Exposing the safe place stuff, Ezra. I love that. But it's nice to hear that that's the thing that rings true, because I think that's a great example, at least in my corner, of being able to have a safe place to express it in the way that I did, essentially, you know. And I think that was something I really loved and appreciated about working with the team that we worked with, was everybody came into the room and knew we're doing something really special, really important, and we just need to feed that vision. And we're going to have the hard conversations, we're going to have the sensitive conversations, and we were very frank with each other, which I think to a certain degree you have to be to keep it pushing. You know, we've got a production going, and everybody was really dedicated to, this is not an attack, a personal attack on myself. This is an opportunity to expand, to extend, to connect with people like-minded, even if we're different. So having those conversations was really great. And coming from South Africa and consulting in the ways that we did in terms of culture and things like that, it was really great to see how the team was immediately, they pivoted, like the swiftness of just like understanding and shifting was really fantastic, and not something I've experienced a lot in my career, I'll be very clear. So again, this was very special for me, even in the space that I'm at in my career. Yeah, there was a lot of collaboration. I mean, Kerry spoke to the voice talent, but the world, the hair texture, always a constant conversation. Everybody was ready to keep on circling back to it. Even after we'd animated, if something was off key, we were rejigging. And that was really great, even for the director, Pierre-Alain, to be so open to that and in crafting that. And the world we drew from, you know, South Africa is actually very Pan-African. So that was also really exciting, because we weren't just necessarily isolated in South Africa. We could look at Southern Africa, but even in our country, so many different cultures, ethnic groups, tribes, languages, and we had those touch points. Those were also shifts that we made, looking to include as much as possible, but still keep it true to Southern Africa and South Africa. So really, really great conversations, and a really great example of collaboration and safe place expressions. Really good.
Love that. Kiera, come on in and bring your wisdom, because you've brought a lot, and certainly from a kind of global communication standpoint, to get us to a place where actually we're comfortable talking about, you know, some stuff that a lot of people still find very uncomfortable to talk about. Love to hear from you.
Yeah, I always appreciate you hyping me up, Ezra. So thanks. Thanks for the call out of my wisdom. And I really also just want to echo something that Seppo had said, that there was a willingness to have these difficult conversations at the very beginning, because there's no way you're going to talk about this type of show, this type of protagonist without, and do it authentically without having some tough conversations and some things that people might not necessarily be ready for. So I would say first and foremost, education took a lot of different paths, and it evolved with like every single step. We were doing something different on the education front. So during development, and you talked about like globalization, right? So we're talking about global Black community stereotypes and the things that we just need to avoid. So things like masculinization. So we're not going to call Kiya strong. We're also not going to adultify Kiya. So she's never going to be a young woman. She's always going to be a girl. So those are some things that we have to think about. But then as we kind of got closer to launch, it was really more about giving different stakeholders tools to describe the show, right? So, and how do we talk about Kiya? And then from this place of really authentically conveying the show to those from within the culture, to those who might be without. And that's like a weird dichotomy to bridge. So, we know that we need Kiya to resonate with little Black girls, with their parents. But we also recognize that like every person who's discussing Kiya publicly isn't going to be Black. We don't have the luxury to just be talking to each other. So how do we come up with some common language that really bridges those two? And that's especially for those of us who identify as Black. There are things that might be appropriate for us, but are not appropriate for those outside the diaspora. So like, how do we give them that education too? I'll give you for instance, when we're talking about things like skin color, within the wider global Black community, it's pretty universally accepted. I won't speak for everyone, but it's pretty universally expected to talk about ourselves in terms of light and dark when we're talking amongst each other. But that doesn't mean that we want to hear a non-Black executive describe Kiya as dark-skinned, right? Like that would like set off.
I didn't do that, by the way.
Right. But it came up in conversation. So it's like, how do we talk about her color? And so we went like really deep down the rabbit hole there, and we settled on deep umber. So deep umber is her actual like RGB color. And in the Black community, we would probably never talk to each other and say that we were deep umber. We would like, that's just not language that we would use, but we have to look for that commonality so that people who are not of the culture can go forward and discuss Kiya publicly in a way that not only doesn't alienate, but draws people in. And I think that's really the special sauce, right? Like we're going past not taking people off. We want to bring them in and have them be a part of the show.
Yeah, and I, again, just really appreciated the frankness and the education, as you say, and particularly, where you called out, there are some things I can say when I talk about Kiya and some things you can't say when you talk about Kiya, and that's exactly as it should be. And so again, that openness and willingness to learn, and obviously, we've brought so many people along the journey with us, and so thank you for everything that you have done there. I'm going to check in on my questions and also on the time. So we've got 5-10 minutes left, and then we're going to open the floor to Q&A. So start thinking of questions, guys, because we want to hear from you, and these women are brilliant, so you should make the most of this moment that you have with them. So Kerry, back to you, and again, just focusing on the creative community that we kind of pulled together from across the world, and yeah, how you found that experience in your career, I guess.
On Kiya, I mean,
yes,
I think Sepe will be able to talk about that really nicely for us, because she's got even longer history of it than me. But Kimoja itself is, I think, every time I look at it, every time I see a snapshot of the show, I think, oh, we really did create a show that looks unlike any other animated show that I've seen. And that's what is one of the things that I think is so super fresh about it. Finally there really is a show set in, and sure, fantastical and fictional, but Southern African city. And, you know, it's beautiful. It doesn't have buses. It has its lovely cable cars, say. And I think Cape Town has a cable car, but like, you know, but it's cool. Like people get on the cable car and go along, and it flies around the top of the city. You can see possibly for series 4 the ocean some way off, but it's got, you know, savannah. Like it really feels, you know, like a city I've not seen in a preschool show before. Like I really love the fact that they can go to the savannah and there's, you know, elephants, and Kia's best friend is an elephant. They also really, you know, there was a lot of textural thought, a lot of color thought. You know, you'll see sort of a ceramic tile on the floor of the, you know, just a lot of that kind of just the stuff of it, just the feel of it, the sun, the heat of Kimoja, you can really feel, I think. And, you know, I really love there's so many details in it, you know, but there's the food that is eaten there. You know, there's Malva pudding, there's Papa Chakalaka, we don't have popcorn, we have Ama Kip Kip, you know. Like I really hope that those things start to kind of come into the kind of, you know, common parlance of Ama Kip Kip instead of popcorn. I mean, I just love all those things, and I'd never heard of those things before, you know. And I love that I know a little tiny fraction more, and I hope that the little ones watching will also be as curious, and they'll be much more curious than me, of course, and naturally they would be, but they'll like be chuffed to know all this kind of new stuff. So there was, yeah, a lot of, I mean, as he said Seppo, that Robert coming over to spend some time with you guys, think about the characters, you know. I guess the characters themselves also, of course, inform the authenticity of the place, and the stalls, and I don't know, the whole thing, I think, was, you know, just there's so much, isn't there? But it was all, you know, nothing's an accident. It's all very intentional.
Therefore, build on that. You're our exec creative consultant. Yeah, give people an insight into what that means, and I guess how you applied that here.
Yes, okay. So creative consultant, I mean, like Carrie said, we were part of the development process into production, into pre-production and post. So we were also at every stage and corner of the Kiya series, developing it. And what was really great about that, I think sometimes, or I've realized sometimes people can, what's what I'm looking for, mistaken cultural consultants and creative consultants, and it kind of gets a little muddled in a certain kind of sense. So it was really great to come into the space and not just be spoken to from strictly a cultural perspective, but being seen from the understanding that we are still creatives. We just happen to come up from a certain place that the story is based from. So I just want to high five everybody and the team in terms of like allowing us to be seen in a certain way, because that does tend to happen. We have that experience where I end up in a room just because I'm South African or I'm a Black woman, and there's a broader stroke to that. That speaks to, again, the premise of Kiya as well, duality. We are more than one thing. And that was really celebrated in the room. So I mean, Carrie spoke to the world. It was inspired by Bo-Kaap City, specifically in Cape Town, but we really wanted to, you know, the decision to land on a fictional city was so that one could be respectful of cultures in a certain way, coming from the continent, because there's certain places we couldn't tap into for a preschool audience. So we thought, let's create a fictional place where we can still draw and be inspired from these things, but create our own city, you know, where the kids can imagine in a certain way, and we have more expanse and story and world. So we drew from Bo-Kaap all those colors and textures, and really just took it to the next level of experience, which is really beautiful. But all those colors and things you see here from the Islamic Cape Malay culture in South Africa. So again, that mixed cross-culture aspect to the world. The foods was something that Carrie had mentioned. We brought those kind of nuances in, again, just to kind of express the different foods and styles and clothing that we do have here, but also connecting the dots. Because I think when you do projects like this also, you know, you're looking at how do we tell an authentic story that still has global reach, right? And I think Kiya is a very, very good example of winning at that job. In terms of the writing, I was also a writer on the show. So that was really great to wear those two hats, because it allowed us as writers to be in a certain type of room where we were unpacking these kind of things and then pull them into story in a framework that allowed the production again to keep going and running as smooth as possible. So even in terms of the language used, a lot of our dialogue, yes, is in English, but we chose to pick very kid-friendly slang terms that are used in South Africa, as well as bring in some of our more cultural languages like the greetings, Molweni and Molo. So, picking certain things like that. But as an example, in South Africa, we have 11 different tribal groups, so 11 different languages as well. So we didn't want to box Kiya again into one specific group. But so mixing those languages, like she says awe a lot. Awe is a Cape Townian slang term for our mixed race ethnic group. And then Molo comes from our Zulu and Xhosa tribe as well. So mixing the pot really helped us in a certain sense. So clothing, the world, the language used, the hair as well, the complexions of the different characters, and also the families as well. I think Shandu and Miriam's family, Jay and Motsi being brother and sister, and having that kind of unity and making sure it was held in a certain kind of way that was true to South Africa and the continent, in the sense of, they never call each other stepbrother and stepsister. Culturally for us, it's brother, sister. Even your friend becomes your sister. Gogo Flow is everybody's grandmother. That is the kind of stuff we are breathing into the community base and understanding it from those nuanced layers without like slapping the kids in the face with hard information, but just playing it out in episodes in a really, really gentle and beautiful way that they can absorb. But those kind of aspects were really important to us. The kids eating with their hands sometimes was really fantastic. The way they greet every adult in a certain way to acknowledge them. So if you're, as you keep watching the episodes, watch them over and over again, please. You'll start to, you pick up those little things here and there. And that's what's really exciting to see, kind of kids mimicking those kind of situations and experiences. So again, across the board, so much cultural referencing done. And as a creative consultant, being able to be a part of every step of the way, even the voice talent, picking out the voices, deciding to have maybe slightly more neutral South African accents, but in the older characters, pushing that accent even stronger, not being afraid to do that out of, will people not hear, understand? People will learn to understand and appreciate and hear it. So having that variety as well, again, just really just held a true to form space while still having room to play and create this like exciting Kimoja world, Also Kimoja is also a Swahili term. We chose to use Swahili because at its base, most African languages, I mean, some people academically might fight me, but are drawn from Swahili. It is one of the largest languages on the continent that we can connect with each other. So we thought it would be really fantastic to play that into calling the city Kimoja. So directly translated, little off key, but in the play of it, it's one, it means oneness, and applying it to a Swahili word in terms of our continent was just a wonderful thing to be able to do. So you can see all the little buttons that you get to experience without even knowing it is really great.
And we were inspired so much by that. I come from a Turkish culture, and everyone's mum is my mum. We have second mums, and so I really related to that. And honestly, all kids, I think, will benefit from being exposed to a community where you would never walk past anybody without saying hello and sharing a greeting. And not all communities are like that around the world. And so to be able to spread some of that, inclusive sunshine to 150 markets, and counting, is something that we were really inspired by. And you're touching on, I guess, the kind of fictionalized version of the community that we've created for kids in all corners of the world. We want them to feel like Kimoja is a place that they could happen on and be a part of. And so, having something that feels so warm and open and being able to invite everybody in, as opposed to very specific, where you can't then, as a 3 or a 4 or a 5-year-old, kind of imagine yourself being there, is definitely something that is a key consideration for us in the work that we do from my side. So yeah, love hearing you talk about it.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
Yes. I'm going to wrap us up with a final question. I'm going to go round. I'm going to start with you, Kiara, which is, to all of these amazing people who will be incredibly talented and inspiring and creative on the phone, on the phone. I'm showing my age, guys. I am very old. On our call. What would you say for anyone looking to, you know, come into our industry and do your kind of role? What would be that single piece of advice that you would give?
Oh, single piece of advice. Well, first, there used to be conference calls, and I miss them. I miss the dialed in and you just listened in. Somebody used to look back. So I mean, my singular piece of advice would be to find what annoys the crap out of you, that like, if you were in charge of it, you would just change it in an instant. Like if somebody just gave you this problem, you'd be like, oh, I know exactly how I'm going to go about fixing it. At least if you want to be in my role. And I mean, I think for me, there's always been sort of a bee in my bonnet about the lack of diversity in programming overall, in children's programming. And then when there is programming, it's lopsided, or, you know, like the representation is lopsided. I was raised by a boomer mother who just like never watched TV with me. I'm a millennial parent. I watch TV with my kid. I watch everything she's watching. And when I was little, I just was like, well, what's wrong with me that I'm not on TV, or that something maybe was a little bit adjacent, but it didn't reflect me. And so now that I'm an adult and my husband can attest, I'm constantly yelling at the TV. I'm like, this could be better. Who was in the room when this was written? Who decided on this script? Like, let me fix this. So for me, you know, it's really about seeing marginalized communities that are accurately depicted. And that's just a very driving passion of mine. So I'm always all in when I get to work with a client like Hasbro and with you all that share that belief in the upfront. I don't have to do any convincing as to why communities should be depicted. So I think when you find that type of alignment, it just makes your job that much easier. So for me, it's really finding the problem that you would be happy to solve if you were the person in charge.
Love that. Love that. Kerry?
So I have one single thing to say. I've got loads of things to say. So I would say if anyone, they should ask me questions directly. But I mean, obviously I come from the production side of things. And I would say that there just aren't enough people that understand the animation process and why they want to work in the animation field that they are involved in. So I would say understand your why. Why do you want to make preschool television? I make preschool television because I want to talk to little people. I want to tell them stories and I want to help them and I want to inspire them. And I don't want to do that anymore for older people. I want to do it for little people. I spend time reading all the new books that come out. I do training about learning, and I spend time reading with little kids at the schools here where I live, just so I can be with my audience. So I really, really know my audience, and I want to make them happy, and I want to entertain them. I want to be part of the memories that they have, their experience of watching television. I feel it's the universal communication device still. I think you can really make a difference through the stories that you tell in television, and I really believe in that. So I know my why. That's what I mean. I would also say understand production processes, because you will find a chink that will let your light in just to get your feet under the table, and you'll also find your area that you just love, like sound post-production or character design or story write, that stuff is just, and I would also just say finally, really fangirl or fanboy the crap out of it. If you really want to do this stuff, I listen to the people who just love it as much as I do. I'll be like, oh, you're interesting. I might give you a ring or phone, might phone them up, Ezra, or but nothing too bland. I'm not that interested. I really have to hear the passion. And I have to really believe that actually this is the area you want to be in, and you really want to know, you want me, because I will mentor, train, bring you up through the process, and I've done that with many, many people if the passion is there. So that's multiple things. So sorry, Ezra.
but all around that one central theme, and there were hearts coming up for you.
Very
and
good.
I definitely feel that as well when I hear you talk about it. Yeah, and thank God you're making telly for little kids, because it's a wonderful thing. Seppo.
From my development and writer's corner, I would definitely say one thing that's really great about our times is we have a lot more access to information and sources of information. So there's not necessarily a linear path to you learning and engaging in spaces. So find the ways that work for you to get more information, to get you in the kind of spaces or training or skill that you want. That's a really fantastic thing that I would love people to get into a lot more in terms of your concepts, your ideas. One thing I'd like to tell people in our little master classes and things is the stories are all been told. To be honest, all these stories have all been told the same way. The thing that makes them different is your unique angle, your authentic voice, your voice particularly, and the message you're trying to give. So do not be afraid to put that forward. A lot of people like to tell stories of what they think someone else wants to hear, what they think these companies want to hear. Yes, do your market research, understand your target market, but bring yourself to the forefront. The rest will be developed anyways. So I just really encourage people to really just center around what is the message they're trying to give and how can they show themselves within something. That always bites for me more than the structure of your treatment, okay, and the cleanliness. If I can see the story in there, that's the whole point of development. That's the important thing about it. We'll get to the bigger things. So don't be afraid to put yourself in there. That is the thing that actually makes your story unique. So those would kind of be the bigger strokes. And like Carrie said, engage. Don't be afraid to ask. I always tell people, like, ask me, come and approach me, send me an email. I'll respond when I can. I won't respond when I can. Asking is for free. Rejection, you'll deal with later. But engage, take a step, try it out. I got into Triggerfish because I went and sat with Anthony and had a conversation and told him what I wanted to do and what I wanted to work on. Certain kind of stories, certain kind of projects, certain kind of characters. And he called one day and said, I've got it. Welcome to Kiya. So, and it literally came from interrupting him during coffee.
Great.
And
great.
Awesome. Guys, I genuinely could listen to you guys talk forever, but I'm going to stop and run through. And so thank you. So many questions. And an amazing woman called Charlotte has been transcribing them to my other screen here. So when I look this way, that's what I'm doing, is I'm looking at all of the questions that she's gathered together. I am going to... Oh my God, there's so many. Okay. Kiera, I'm going to choose you, and then I'm going to choose Kerry and Seppo, you for some of these others. And this is a big one, but what does Kiya mean to you? I know, such good. I mean, there's some good, there are meaty questions here, guys.
Not that one. What does Kiya mean to me? I mean, so much. I would say it's the first project that I worked on when I started at RNC PMK. And my daughter has been looking over my shoulder while I have been in development for this show. So I haven't let her watch any of the trailers or any of the content, but when she, when I'm working on the communications playbook or how we're going to talk about something, and she sees a PowerPoint presentation, she sees a little girl who looks maybe a little bit more like me than like her, but a little girl who is just like kicking butt and not apologetic about it, right? Like we're not asking Kiya to choose. She doesn't have to be one way or another. And I think that's just so important, especially for kids today, that there is no binary, right? They can kick butt and they can still be really good friends. Girls especially, that they don't have to solve everything through talk. Like Kiya's not waving a magic wand or like getting everybody together to have a very deep discussion. She's just headstrong and going for it. And what that means to me is that there's representation for little girls who are not in that like particular mold. I won't call any other brands out or in on this one. But there's no like particular mold. There's no like right way to be. And so Kiya for me represents a headstrong little girl who knows what it is that she wants to do, and it's okay for her to make mistakes, and She's got a type of family that's not always represented. And I just think that that's beautiful. And I think that that is super inspiring. Like I said, I was raised by a parent who never thought that we should be seen on TV. And so to see her, I think is just, for me, is fantastic. And I hope I get to work on her for just the rest of my career. So that's what Kiya means to me.
Beautiful. So for Aman, we've had a raised hand. I don't know how you can do that, but Celie Devon is one of our super fans, and so I really want to give you the floor because we want to say hi and we want to say thanks for the love. Can we get Celie off mute so that he can share with us, because you've earned it, dude.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you. Yes, that is a Bajan flag.
You hear me now?
Yes.
Hi guys. I'm glad to meet you. I'm Malis Devon. I'm from Barbados. I'm a Kiya and Kimoja Heroes super #1 fan. Right? When I started watching Kiya with my mother, right? My mom and I love it. We enjoy it. I watched all 15 episodes. 15 episodes so far. This show is so amazing.
Thank you.
Oh, I also am a PJ super #1 fan. I support PJ since 2015. When I saw Christian told me about Kiya, right? I said, wow, I'm gonna watch Kiya right now. And then when I watched trailer, I am so super excited, right? I went on Wednesday 22nd on Disney Junior States. I live in Barbados, right? I was a bit nervous. I went 4 o'clock when the show starts. Wow, this show is so amazing. I enjoy it.
Thank you so much.
Here's a question for you
Go
guys
for it.
about
You've got 2 minutes.
Oh, okay. Here's a question for you. Got 2 minutes. Well, I hope Kiya will get season 2. Hopefully, if Disney gets season 2 of Kiya, I will be happy. But Kiya is teaching every one of us do the right things. Even teaching us about South African culture, like me. I teach you about Barbados culture. Africa is a part of Caribbean culture too. I speak I say Yabo, yes. I speak Yabo.
Yes.
Right? I spoke Molo, Hewe. What else you know? What else I talk about?
Celie Devon, I'm gonna stop you just because I know you can talk about this forever, and we're about to be cut off, my friend.
Okay,
so I want to thank you for the love.
Thank you.
Thank you. And guys, I was rubbish at getting through your questions, and so I'm going to commit to this, which is that we're going to get them answered for you, and somehow through BYP find a way of putting them somewhere so that we can actually answer those questions. Thank you so much for being with us and for sharing and for commenting as we go through. Aman, I'm going to hand back to you.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Ezra. So I just want to say a massive thank you to all of the speakers from E1. This has been an absolutely incredible session. And if you are interested in careers at E1, please feel free to use the link in the chat to drop your CV. Also keep an eye out for a follow-up email as well as the survey, which is going to pop up at the end of this call. The follow-up email will have a recording of this webinar. So if you want to rewatch this session, because it was that incredible, feel free. And please register for our Leadership Conference 2023. It's our 5th edition Leadership Conference, and it's going to be absolutely incredible. The link will also be in the chat. And also feel free to join our new career advancement platform, Javelin. Javelin connects you to opportunities and resources based on your personal goals, all in one place. And you can get early access using the link in the chat as well. So thank you all once again, and have a lovely evening.
Thank you,
everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Love you guys.
Bye.